the essential question was, what can nature's cycles teach us? And we made this kind of working definition for the children so that they had something to go on, to start with. And we said sustain means to keep something going, like a cycle. It means not letting things run out. It means giving back after you've taken. That you can already see there's a sort of human aspect to that. So, having introduced the principle, we then took them through some connecting exercises. So, we worked on 3 levels of connecting. 1, learning to connect with yourself. About that in a minute. 2, how do you connect with each other? And 3, how do you connect with the natural world? And that had 2 aspects, connecting with the senses and connecting with the principle that I spoke about. So, connecting with yourself. What we've done with the children, actually we didn't do as much with that class as I've done with my own classes, was give them just a moment to come to rest and to be still, be physically still, mentally still. Ask them just to be still and connect with themselves. If you like, pause. That's very, very powerful and simple thing to do, but if you spend even 30 seconds doing the class, you can actually get a sense, if you like, of connecting with the you in harmony. I can use that word. That was an important part of the investigation, if you like. In terms of connecting to others, we pointed out to them, as they know very well, they've been actually very well trained at this school, to listen to each other really deeply. As we said before, space is about communication. And so there was a lot of discussion, there was reading out of the text aloud, reading their own work. Wherever there was talking, we asked them to really listen, because that was part of learning to live in harmony, in practice. So you can see what we're trying to do is make that concept real in practice. And then finally, or not finally, but thirdly, we spent quite a little time, and again, if I were running this again, I would spend more time on this, getting them to connect with their senses. It's surprisingly simple and surprisingly powerful. So, as we know, we have 5 senses. Listening to the birds, something you cannot do, touching some bark when you're walking down the street, picking up a leaf and feeling it, actually looking at the colours and geometry of a flower. Just connecting with the senses really does do something. So I'm just going to choose this, perhaps slightly perplexing slide, as an example. If we now are aware of the sense of touch, can we be aware of the air touching your skin? You just feel the air. Feel your clothes on your skin. Get a sense of that, being connected. If you take that further, we're connected with the air through the sense of touch. Think about the fact that we are breathing air in and out. Every creature is breathing air in and out. The air is actually diffusing into every object around us. In fact, air connects us to each other, to the natural world, to the whole universe. Then, if you think about air, it also carries life, because without air, all the creatures die. So, and then, this slide, showing that air supports, in this case, the bird. You need the sense of touch to do every action that we do. We do so much with our hands, that's the sense of touch. That's just the dog running through the air. But just to give this sense, that just by connecting with one sense, you can be connected completely. So that's one example of something easy that you can do in the classroom. The second thing is this mysterious thing on your desk. So can you open it carefully? And you might want to just maybe tip it onto the paper to get it away from the foil. Now, has everyone put some water on? I hope this is going to work. But what I get them to do is close their eyes. They didn't really do this, and they were so good because we said there's one rule here: you're not allowed to say and of course, what they have is some real garden soil with things crawling around and stuff. But so you close their eyes, or you can do this. I just don't know if you can get this, but see whether you can actually get the scent of the soil. You just might have to move it, and it's quite good closing your eyes. If not, I've got another one for you to try. You might press it a bit and sort of move it to get it. Can anyone not smell theirs?
Yeah, that's it. What were you?
Anybody not smell theirs? Because this one is really dramatic. Yeah, that one's... This one really will. I'm going to bring this down. This is amazing.
Just have a good sniff there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Now you need longer, really, than just a sort of quick sniff. But I've done this so many times before, and it's so great. Now, what did you observe? Let me say something. What qualities did you observe? Quite hard.
Darkness.
Okay. You might want it again. We can carry on passing it round.
She's going to bring it back. It's kind of woody. It's very woody.
Woody. Okay, I like that. Woody. Yes. More.
Just takes you somewhere else.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't it? It's
Yes.
transportational. You I instantly imagined a wood or my conservatory, which I'm currently using as a greenhouse.
Your work.
My conservatory I'm using as a greenhouse.
Yes. Yes.
Before I put the plants out into the garden, I was there.
It's a musty
It's the place
smell.
where the kids aren't allowed in.
Yes.
It's my little place.
Yes. So somewhere quite sort of vibrant.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And okay. Somebody else said
Oh, I said musty as well.
Musty. woody.
Life.
Life.
Yeah.
Yes. Very living.
Also death.
Yeah.
Also death.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yes.
It kind of got, I've got decay.
Decay. Yes. You've got decay, haven't you? You have got decay and you've got life. What else? And musty, as you say, woody, very sort of evocative.
You think the mouldy earth and the coffins and Dracula.
Yes.
Again,
Again,
the
that's
last time I read about it, I mean, like taking it away from the garden, that's just made me remember that description from the
yes, yes. Anything else?
Such a snooze after a heavy rainstorm.
Yes, yes. So there's a sort of freshness as well, isn't there, that you get? A freshness, would we say? So, and that's just a start. You know, you can get a lot of it. Now, what is the meaning of that? Well, it's really interesting because I'm sure we all know this. What does soil do? It gives life to new plants. It holds the nourishment from which seeds grow. Seeds grow into massive things, oak trees, whatever. Yes? So you can smell, you actually sense that sort of life, that vibrancy, that freshness, that newness. But what does soil also do? All the bodies that die go back into the earth, break down through the bacteria and fungi and so on, and return their components to the earth, which then gives rise to the new life. So in just one sniff or two, you have the start of a whole story of what's going on, a cycle. You have the you've got a quality there that you wouldn't get if you read in a textbook what does soil do. You know what I mean? There is a real difference. So that is connecting with this, in this case, principle of cycles and sustainability in a real way that does give a sense of the harmony in nature. So that's one aspect of what we're doing. And then it, oh, that was one of the children at school holding the soil before she did it. You can see her writing on her hand. So we talked about connecting with yourself through the stillness, connecting with each other through listening, proper listening, and connecting with the natural world, firstly through the senses. Second way of connecting with the natural world are through these harmony principles that I spoke to you a little bit about before, the 7. And in this example, we're talking about this particular principle of cycles and sustainability. And this is where the texts came in that the children read, because we use them for them now to make, if you like, an academic connection with the principle, and also an emotional connection, which I'm surprised to see came really from reading it through, getting the sense of where the author was coming from. So you've got a sort of intellectual and an emotional input from the author. So that's where the text came in. So these are the books we used. I thought as English teachers you might like to know. So remember, these children are 12 years old, very mixed ability. I don't know if you know these books, of geeks like me who are into this type of thing. But the Secret Life of Cows. So these are all non-fiction. Isabella Treat, I so recommend that book to you if you're into these things. Wilding. John Lewis Stump, he's written a lot about connecting with the natural world. They're all farmers or concerned with things on soil, earth. It's called The Running Hare. Satish Kumar, I don't know if you've heard of, but this book, Soil, Soul and Society, again, brilliant, quite wacky but interesting. And of course everyone's heard of Gerald Darrell's Found in Other Animals. So the example I'm going to use today will be based on Wilding, Isabella Treat's book. So they're reminded now of the essential question, what can nature cycles teach us? Got the definition, and they're given an excerpt of this book. Now, so this is what they were given, and on the back of it, yeah, actually this hasn't come out, but on the back of those sheets they also had these pictures. So I'll give these out to them, and you'll see why in a minute. So we told them a bit about the book. As you can see, we said the book is about people who ran a farm using heavy machinery and chemicals, which caused great damage to the soil, drove out many species of local wild plants, animals and microorganisms that lived on and around the farm. So these people, Isabella Tree and her husband, decided to take a huge leap of faith and hand their land back to nature. They stopped intensive farming, brought in herds of free-roaming animals, and they suddenly found that the lands and the creatures all started to come back into life. The whole place completely changed. We actually went to visit it. It was something. So what we did was we chose that passage, which you've got there, and this is not the whole passage, but you can see it hasn't come out in purple. What the teacher did is highlight the tricky words, and at the bottom you'll see she's put an explanation of the words. And what the children did was they read it, they were in groups, and they read it. She has this fantastic system, I don't know if you know it, where they get into groups. One person is the reader, one's the questioner, one's the clarifier, and one's the summarizer. And they're trained to do this, so that's how they worked. So they read it, and then when they hit one of those words, they looked at the bottom and then did what they mean. So that was the first thing. They actually read the text, had the words for clarification, discussed it, summarised it as best they could in their little groups. Now the next thing is you'll see that you've got, she's put in A, B, C, and so on. And you'll see you've got your pictures of the creatures. So the ABC refers to the animals on the back, or the organisms. And what they were given was this picture, sorry, I've got a few of them. And this is the, they each had one of these sheets. And you can see what they were asked to do perhaps. When they got to a letter, like say, whatever, what's A? A was the, they got the great spotted woodpecker, they got the insect larvae. They had to draw, as they got to each letter, they had to draw the creature onto the dying oak. It was such a great exercise. Because what they were doing, what was happening was they were really engaging with the text visually, and also in a literary way. So those were the two kind of scaffolds that they were given to connect. So the next thing we did, they were given this to help, and they were asked to write. They were told again, nature systems are sustainable because of materials move around cycles, creates no waste pollution, works within limits, does nothing to excess. So then they had to write, we see in this in the text when, so then they had to actually sit and write a little passage using what they'd wrote. So that was something. Next thing we did was, I've got these for you to have, we gave them a set of reflective questions. And pass them around. And we asked them to, you know how the standard varies, so some of them were only able to manage one, some could do 2, 3, whatever. But you can see, for example, which principle did today's text link to? Explain, say which one it was and explain why. What other questions does it raise for you? What does today's text teach us about nature? What did you enjoy? So they could tackle any of those, and most equally important, the next stage was this question: how does today's text relate to you and your life? So this is where now we're starting to use nature's principles to bring into our own life. And what we wanted them to do here was think of things they could do in their life which would have an effect on the natural world. So think of one practice they could do, and one practice which would have an effect on other people. We gave them a choice of questions, but we said, of course, make up your own, but obviously they could have done with some help. So we gave them some of these things as possible choices. So the ones on the left, things that would affect the natural world, and the ones on the right, things that would affect other people. So they're using the principle in nature, the principle in human life. I'd like to say a little bit about this gratitude to show you how this makes sense. We gave them the idea of what I call circle or cycle of gratitude, meaning when you receive something, even if it's a meal, not even if, but a meal, and you even thank the person who gave it to you for anything you receive, in expressing your gratitude, you're completing that action. Somehow an action is complete when you receive thanks, so when you give it. And that encourages more generosity. It strengthens people's resolve to give. I know that makes sense to you, but it's the human aspect, an example of this cycle. as it could apply in our life. So they come at this principle, if you like, from various angles. And I just now bring it all together, or some of it, to look at what they've now got to write their essay. And by the way, the teacher who was running the trial with me, she had this idea of calling it a manifesto, which I thought was great, actually. Oh, it was quite clever, I didn't do that. So, firstly, they've got their understanding of the text from their collaborative reading and the discussion. They've got their experience of the principle by connecting at an intellectual and emotional level. They've got their experience of connecting with themselves through the quietness, and their experience of connecting with the natural world through the senses. They have got a store, and again we need to do more on this, of what I call human values, or not me in particular. The school itself has a number of values, you know, their school values. We have a number that we also use. Very important for putting this principle into practice. So they have that, which the teacher talks to them about. And now we ask them to have their vision, use their imagination and all that they've been given to what could they do to bring about harmony in the world. Quite a lot to ask a 12-year-old. So finally, what we did, and I hope you don't disapprove of this, we did give them a structure. They are very young, but it wasn't sort of method, result and conclusion. And what the teacher did was she took them through these stages, which I suppose as English teachers you're very familiar with, but and they spent some time in this, about 4 weeks really, doing this. They had to write an introduction. First, I should say, firstly they had to choose one harmony principle that particularly was meaningful to them, and their manifesto was written on that one principle. So, introduction, we state the harmony principle you've chosen, explain what that means to you in your own words. A paragraph saying how the principle shows itself in the natural world, based on the text you've read. A paragraph explaining how that applies in your personal life, to you and other people. And then a paragraph explaining about what human values come into play there. And finally, your vision. I should have said, the title being, My Vision of Harmony for Now and the Future. Sorry. So that was what they had to do. And if you are willing, I'd like to read you one example. Is that all right? It's the boy himself is quite funny because when we said to the class, you know, that we're going to do this essay, they knew they were going to do it because we told them at the beginning. Puts his hand up. He goes, does everyone have to do it, miss? And we said yes. And I've chosen his to read to you. I have got others, obviously. Curiously, I thought very interesting, the principle he chose to write about was oneness, which, that's amazing. And strangely enough, more of them chose oneness than any other thing.
Oh, interesting.
It is. So the writing's a bit tricky, but anyway. Have you ever noticed that humans treat nature like a piece of paper? We use it and chuck it away as if it's not valuable. We are part and not apart from nature. We are all one. An important example of this principle is shown by Satish Kumar in the text Soil, Soul and Society. He tells us that humans have come to believe that they are separate from nature and are above nature, and he puts quotation marks there. This means that humans think we are stronger than nature, but really we are not. We are all equal. The principle of oneness is important to me personally, because where I live in London, there is a lot of murder, and that's really true. Then he says, for example, there are 55.3 million people who die each year. We don't think of murder. So I think there should be more nature around to smooth and calm people down. I sometimes shout, so I'm going to think before I do, because as part of the same community, because we are all part of the same community. The principle of oneness also teaches us the value of humanity. I believe we can make a difference to the world if everyone knew about oneness, because they would think before they waste food, shout at each other, and hurt people, because they appreciate the connection between people, and that we are no different. People always respect each other when they see each other. Even if someone got hurt, we should help, because we are all one. Even if I ask for a pen, the person wouldn't be selfish and say no. My vision for harmony is that there should be more peace in the world. One way it could happen is when every school has a quiet room, so they can calm down and just appreciate nature. So we should thank nature for all the stuff they have done for us. Sounds very sweet. I mean, it's not great academically, but I think it gives you an idea of what you've taken on from it.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and I could have read you more polished ones, but I just thought that was quite moving. So, yeah, I think what we've tried to do, I've taken some of the words you had, Kirsty, in your blurb, but I think our pupils were actively nourished by the connection exercises. I think that it was adventurous for them, dealing with unfamiliar ideas that were big and of real importance. And we felt that their writing had vitality because it involved in them creating and expressing their own vision. Here are some of the comments that they themselves said about, they hadn't actually got round to writing the manifesto. Here's some of them. I enjoyed the facts we learned about the messages the text gave. The text gave me a new perspective on nature. These are all different people. It made me realise that there is much more to nature. I enjoyed the sensory tasks because they made me feel like I knew nature a little more. When we got to discuss it, the text, we got to say how we felt about it. When we discussed it, I understood the text really well. Discussing the text helped our understanding of reading the text properly. So, I think we did provide a space for thinking. I think that it was broader, it was deeper, it was meaningful. I think there was a holistic reflection, and it had a real world purpose. You know, it wasn't a theoretical matter. And I like to think that it made both the teachers and the pupils feel optimistic and able to build a world in which harmony prevails, where human beings live in harmony with each other in the natural world.
Gosh, Jane, thank you so much. Let's just have a little clap. I think we'd all love to just have a free discussion with you to kind of unpack some of these ideas if we may.